I'm so delighted that you've been able to now join us this week. This week, we're going to cover the influencing power of mindfulness and what that means for you as a parent and for those supporting children with ADHD. I'm going to start with a story, first of all, and I'm not sure if anybody is aware of what is called the Maharaji effect. This term was coined out of various different scientific research studies over the last 25 years. Almost 50 studies. And the very first case was in Washington, D.C., where the crime rates were quite significant. And a group of meditators were called in on the 7th of June, 1993. 4,000 participants that were skilled in transcendental meditation rocked up to Washington, D.C. and meditated. And they meditated for about 2.5 to 4 hours, twice a day. And the results were that during that period, from the 7th of June to the 30th of July, the violent crime in Washington, D.C. reduced by 18%. And that's how the Maharaji effect principle was created. This study was replicated several times. Most recently, there was a 2016 study which actually looked at 206 large US urban areas between 2007 to 2010. And they were discovering a decrease in murder of 21 to 28.4%, just from a group meditating within that environment. When they calculated it, they discovered that a ratio of 1% of a community practicing meditation was responsible for impacting that whole city. So if you take that as a principle and apply it to anywhere, whether it's parenting, whether it's leadership, whether it's just in your community, if you can collectively find a powerful force of meditation, and I'll talk why meditation or mindfulness is particularly effective, or positivity, the ripple effect can be huge. So that's the foundation for what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be looking at the journey of mindfulness. We're going to explore heart and brain coherence. And we're going to also then look at mindfulness within parenting and that ripple effect that we've just spoken about. If you're not familiar, mindfulness is a way of connecting with your life. So it's all about connection. It's about paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And that's by Jon Kabat-Zinn. And Jon Kabat-Zinn is known as the godfather of mindfulness, but he didn't create mindfulness. It is a Buddhist tradition. It can be found in a number of cultures. And it was westernized and popularized by Jon Kabat-Zinn in and around the 1970s. And he made it popular by creating what he called a mindful-based stress reduction program. And that program was specifically commissioned to help support those who were in chronic pain in hospitals when the hospitals didn't know what to do with them. And Jon Kabat-Zinn came in with this 8-week program and made huge leaps and bounds and reduced the pain that many of these people were having. At the same time, Dr. Ellen Langer was also playing around with mindfulness, but she was doing it in a very different way. While Jon Kabat-Zinn's was very structured within a meditative practice, Ellen Langer took the approach of still focusing on the present moment, but in everyday life, finding things to be grateful for, appreciating things. And we'll go into a little bit more detail of what that looked like later. And in the UK, in 2015, the government created an initiative called Mindful Nation, delivering mindfulness programs in every single NHS, that's our National Health Service, in every state school, every workplace, and every criminal justice system by 2020. It has had varying degrees of success. But it just shows that if the government is making a commitment to invest in mindfulness, there must be something right with it. It is the fastest growing research practice in the last 2 decades. I'd like to explore this concept of heart-brain coherence. And if you haven't heard of what heart-brain coherence is, it means if you imagine we have frequency waves, so we have energy fields that surround us. And that energy field has waves in the same way as the earth has waves, the sun has waves. And our brains are actually connected to the earth and the sun. So if there are some upsets between kind of the earth's atmosphere or the sun, it can affect our mental well-being. It can affect our brain. In the ideal world or an ideal state, our brain and our heart are at the same frequency. When we are stressed, overwhelmed, busy, stuck in rumination, irritated with life in general, our heart rate becomes incoherent, which means it has a disconnect between mind and body, and that is so far away from optimal performance and well-being. This graph just shows you that it's not only about relaxation, it's also about the appreciation, joy, love. These are all high rate frequencies. And whilst relaxation does show some benefits, actually connecting that relaxation to enjoyment, appreciation, gratitude is much more beneficial. And if you look at the appreciation and love and the energy that comes from that, it's synchronized as the optimal state for health and well-being globally. And that's why the Maharaji effect was so effective, because they were managing to relax through meditation, but then also to send out positive appreciation, love vibes, if I can say that, to the capital, which permeated and reduced that crime rate. So here's just some of the mindfulness benefits, and you may already be aware of this. It's about stillness and calm and clarity and attention and focus, improved sleep. You're feeling less overwhelmed by situations, less rumination, less depression. But it's also very health beneficial. You have higher brain functioning, which means you're making better decisions and you're thinking with more clarity. It can also increase immune function. There are studies that are now showing that meditation in a certain form is reducing, if not eradicating, some immune deficiencies, often created by stress. And they can be reduced by reducing that stress in an effective way. If you look at all of these mindfulness benefits, and you could get that in a pill, would you take it? And it's really interesting how so many people say, oh, mindfulness is just not for me. I can't, it just doesn't work for me. And yet they're willing to take tablets and pills that are not beneficial in the long run. By all means, some medication is excellent at the right time. If there was a choice between the medication or something that's natural, such as mindfulness and meditation, which would you choose? And why would you choose that? And I would always say that if you have looked at mindfulness and it hasn't worked for you in the past, re-explore it. It's quite possible that it hasn't been done in the way that is appropriate for you. And we'll talk about that in just a second. So just for those who don't know who I am, my name is Zena Hicks. I am a positive psychologist and also an accredited coach. And I also have two boys that have ADHD, presenting very differently. One has inattention and the other one has combined type, so inattention and hyperactivity. I've mastered a number of qualifications along the way, and I'm also in the middle of a doctorate on the efficacy of positive psychology for parents of children with ADHD. And if you don't know what positive psychology is, positive psychology looks at what is right with people and not what's wrong. And it's a branch of psychology that enables you to build on the strengths of an individual. And so you can focus on the good stuff. And if you do have children with ADHD, you're likely, not only you, but your child is likely to hear a lot of negative comments all the time. They need more discipline. I'm not able to help them. I can't do this. The school are telling me there's a problem. The medical professionals are telling me there's a problem. My friends are saying there's a problem. I don't want to see the problem. I can see the child underneath that, and I can see them for who they are. We need to stop the problems. We need to look at what's right, what's good, what can be developed, what can be strengthened. And that approach is incredibly effective. And it just on this topic alone, which is a small portion of positive psychology, mindfulness, the effect that can have, the Maharaji effect on crime, the parent effect with mirror neurons. Mirror neurons is something that is in the brain. And the best way of explaining it is if somebody yawns and then you yawn. It's seeing them yawn and then you're yawning at the same time. If someone trips up and they fall, they bang their elbow, you can think, oh, yeah, felt that, mirror neurons. If your child is sad, if somebody's sad and somebody's upset, you're sad because it's the empathy, or you're feeling that pain in the same way. This is your mirror neurons. Now, as an adult, if you've got stresses and you're not coping, whether it's with a relationship or economic crisis, or if it's with a work problem or something like that, that stress can be felt by your child. And, there's no easy way of saying that. And this is not about blaming. Okay, hands up that I've caused a lot of pain in that sense, probably with my children. But it's not about that, because we're not looking at what's wrong. We're looking at what's right and how that is much stronger than what is ever wrong. But it's the awareness is key. So how we're feeling, our child is going to feel that. They might know it because you might try to hide it, but they can feel it in some way, and it might impact their mood. So if you are very, very stressed, and you can see this in action quite a lot, and I still see it in my days, if one is really stressed, the child starts playing up. They can't find something, there's a problem with this, they've had a bad day, whatever it is, which is exasperating stress. So you can watch it if you're aware of it. The same thing happens from the child. So the child is upset. And then the parent is feeling upset. They feel, no, I can't do anything, I can't help. And then it exacerbates that. So keep that in mind. Maharaji effect, mirror neurons, it's all connected. So today we're going to look at mindfulness and these aspects of self and what you can do practically to help yourself and ultimately everybody around you, and be it that your child, be it your relationships, your family, the wider community. And these are aspects of self, some aspects of self that I actually use in leadership training. And we use 5 in training, and that's self-awareness, self-acceptance, self-inquiry, self-regulation, and self-expression. Well, today I've just honed in on 3 of them: awareness, acceptance, and expression, and looking at what we can do to increase those. And the first is self-awareness. And one thing to note is you cannot have mindfulness without self-awareness. So one cannot exist without the other. And if we look at self-awareness, what is that? And many people think they are very self-aware, but I would challenge that. Always challenge it. Because if you look at what self-awareness is, it means being fully present and aware and less driven by the automated program that we all live by on a daily basis. And what I mean by that automation is, since we were born, we will have acquired much knowledge and much practices and much socially constructed ideas. And they will be in the form of our cultural influences, our family influences, our education, our peer group, and our experiences. Experiences that have happened could include trauma, could include amazing experiences. We have downloaded this program almost like a computer. So if you think all of those experiences are your software, and we run ourselves by this software. So the lens we look through on a daily basis is being run by this program. So that's why we see things often very, very different from how somebody else sees things. By the time we're in our late 20s, many of us are using 90% of our day in automation. So we are spending 90% of our day in automation by doing the same things over and over and over again. And we don't realize this, but we're getting up in the same way, we're brushing our teeth in the same way, we're showering in the same way, we are greeting people in the same way. If we got to go somewhere, we take the same route. We might see things on our route because actually they have changed, but you mightn't actually see them because you're more focused on something else that's in your head, driving your automation. We get in the car, we do not think about how to drive the car. And automation is really useful for things like that. You don't want to think about having to drive the car every time you're driving the car. But the problem is when we're doing things that are not helpful, like driving the car. So it might be our child has a meltdown last night and you haven't bounced back as well as they have because you're exhausted and you've got other things going on. So in the morning when you're greeting the child and they've completely forgotten about it, you might treat them in a slightly different way because you're still a bit irritated, you're still a bit low, you haven't really slept yourself because you're worrying about how awful a parent you are. These are the processes of automation that are really challenging. And what self-awareness does is identifying when these patterns are arising and how to move out of them. But mindfulness is a personal journey, and this is why it doesn't work for everybody, because you haven't found how mindfulness can work for you. So our processes in this practice may vary. And the reason why I love positive psychology so much is because it allows you to pick and choose, kind of like a sweet shop. I'll have that one because I like that one. That resonates with me. And the book I wrote was 28 Days of Positivity. And the reason why that book was written is because I know things do not resonate with everybody. But if you read them, you try them out, all of the activities, and you go, actually, those 4 are really working for me. And that's what I'm going to stick with. So remember, in mindfulness, our thoughts and our awareness must be non-judgmental, non-conceptual, and completely accepting. If you imagine you are from space somewhere and you've landed on the Earth for the very first time, you don't know any people, how they're going to respond to you. You don't know what anything's called. You've never seen a tree before. You have to approach the world with curiosity and learning. And just because a tree is a tree doesn't mean it's a tree. It's been called a tree. It has been socially constructed to be a tree. It could actually, from space, people, it could be life force. So if we recognized every tree as a life force, would we behave the same way as chopping down all the rainforests, removing all our life force? This is an example of mindlessness, which is what Ellen Langer, her objective is, and that was her approach. Get out of the mindless way of living and start focusing and being aware in the present moment. It is not an overnight practice that you can do a couple of times and then forget about it. It is purposely called a practice because you do it every day. But you only need to really dedicate 10 minutes a day for this. And again, you're not only doing it for your own well-being, but remembering that ripple effect that that has on you. And if you are a family, let's say of 4, you are more than 1%. And it only takes 1% of the community to change a whole community. So if you imagine the impact that you could have yourself on your family without them doing anything, which was my approach. I did all the work and the family changed around me, and it was wonderful. And when I don't do the work, it resonates in the family. They see it. Now my husband comes up to me occasionally and says, have you been doing meditation lately? And I'll go, no, I forgot. And he goes, because we can all see it. So Ellen Langer's approach, if meditation isn't right for you, Ellen Langer's approach is to take an everyday activity and apply mindfulness to that activity. And mindfulness in that way is exactly the same as meditation in its truest form. And meditation is about identifying a focus, which could be the breath. Most often it's the breath. It could be a body part, body scan. It could be a sound. It could be a mantra. And the idea is you focus on that. Let's call it an anchor. And you will have thoughts. And this is also the thing that lots of people don't recognize. They think that all their thoughts are going to go away in meditation. They don't. And if you are neurodivergent yourself or have ADHD, they might be coming thick and fast. And it is, as someone who is ADHD, it can be really hard to train your mind to stop those thoughts. But that's actually not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is catch the thought and come back to the anchor. And when I mean catch the thought is at some stage you kind of go, oh, I'm supposed to be breathing and I've forgotten to breathe. So I'm going to go back to the breath. I'm going to focus on my breathing in and focus on my breathing out and keep that. And then another thought will come up and go, oh, yes. And don't judge yourself. No, oh, I'm really rubbish at this. It's, okay, there's another thought. There I go again. Let's go back to the breath. Oh, there's another thought. Let's go back to the breath. There's another, and it keeps on going. And what that's doing is strengthening that muscle all the time. So when you really need to focus, the muscle already knows what to do. And when you're not meditating, but you're applying this in the everyday, you are, let's say, driving the car, and we don't think about driving the car. We think about lots of other things. So try driving the car by really focusing on driving the car, what it feels like, what the steering wheel feels like, what the pressures of those pedals feel like. All of these elements of driving the car, really be focused in the moment of driving the car. And you will get distracted by thoughts. They'll come, but then you'll go back to driving the car. They'll come, back to driving the car. And you just need to keep on doing that. And eventually it'll get a lot easier. And you'll still have the million of thoughts. It's not about stopping the thoughts, but what it is about is getting better at coming back to the focus point. Yes, I see you. No, I'm going to come back. So that's the process of mindfulness and becoming more aware through either meditation or in everyday activities. The second element is self-acceptance. So last week we spoke about self-compassion, which you may remember. And that's a moment of understanding and recognizing that sometimes this is hard. And it's okay not to feel positive all the time. This positive psychology isn't always about being positive all the time, but it's that assurance that you know what to do when you're feeling a bit low. And self-compassion is about forgiving yourself. It's about being kind to yourself. It's acknowledging that I'm really suffering right now and it hurts and I'm really stressed. But then recognizing that you're not alone. There are other people feeling exactly the way you are. And while that's not helping you right in that moment, it is a process that you can be kind to yourself. If I was supporting those other people who are suffering, what would I do? How would I behave with them? So how am I going to behave with myself? This is also tied into identity. Who are you as a person now? Have you changed since becoming a parent? Have you changed since you're being told these problems are happening around you? Your child is not achieving this, or they're not behaving the same way. What has happened to your identity? Because true self-acceptance is about bracing who you are without any conditions or expectations. It's a state of complete acceptance of oneself. So try and think about what you say about how do you describe yourself? That narrative that's in your head, that automated process that is telling you, I'm no good at this, I can't do this, I'm the worst parent, I'm yelling all the time, I can't control my emotions. Watch the narrative and then think about who you want to be. Rather than thinking of the negative, think of the positive. Who do you want to be? Who are you? Be very mindful of the things you say to yourself and maybe write down some positive affirmations, things that you are or want to achieve. I am a great mom. I am a lovable person. I am doing the very best for my child. I am loved. I am kind. I am honest. I am loyal. I am a wonderful person. And when you've got all your list of things you're amazing at, go in front of a mirror and look into that mirror and then say those things to yourself. And I have to say, when I started this practice many years ago, almost 14 years ago, this was the hardest thing for me to do. Look in the mirror and say anything kind about myself. Practicing that kindness to yourself. And if you can't say to yourself, I love you, you can say, I am willing to love you. I am willing to be a better person. I am willing to show up as myself. But ideally, we want to get to that I am loved. I love myself. I am worth it. The next step you can look at is self-expression. And this is, how do you express yourself, thinking about that identity and thinking about not only what you express inside, but what you're expressing outside. And this will, again, differ from each person. And, your culture, your experiences, your education, all of that will feed into you and your identity. But also think about how you currently express yourself. And that might be vocally. Maybe you are quite a vivacious, loud, expressive, shouty person, but maybe you have withdrawn within yourself. Maybe you are dressing a little bit differently because I'm a parent now, and whatever that is. So what are you doing to express yourself, both inside and outside? And we define self-expression as expressing one's thoughts and one's feelings through words, our choices, and our actions. And remember, when we were looking at mindfulness, those choices, making sure that those choices are not part of your automated process, but you're choosing what they are. And how you can do that, both in yourself and in your child, is if you have a diary or a journal, write it down. Writing down forces you to find the right words and expressions to convey what your message is and to align with your identity. If you're working with your child and you want to do this as a joint exercise, you can maybe cut out a cardboard frame and look through it as if it's acting like a mirror, and have your child mimic your expression and identify. So, okay, what am I feeling now? And see what they say back. Because as that child moves into the teens, they can misread what they see in front of them. And there is research around teenagers misreading the expression of concern and worry for angry. So you might say, is everything okay? Why are you angry? I mean, that wasn't my angry face. So the more they kind of recognize, this is my angry face, and this is my happy face, and this is my concerned face, the better that will be. There's also another activity where you can speak your truth. And that is about sitting in front of your child and say, now we're going to have a game where we are open and honest and listen to the other person's commitment to being really honest and authentic. And you might want to explain what authentic means, being really true to yourself. And you might share that there are times when I see that you're upset about something and I can see that you're hurting. Mummy feels sad that she can't help you and doesn't know what to do. And that's about sharing something that's age appropriate with them, because they might know that you're upset when they're upset. They might think you're angry when they're upset. So the more you can have this open dialogue, then they might share their truth on something that's happened that day to them and something they're upset about. So it's encouraging, again, those mirror neurons, the empathy, the I'll share this, you share that, and let's do something fun together. Giggling, laughing, anything that brings up those happy, wonderful appreciation, gratitude, all of those fantastic energy-raising activities. And the final thing that you could do is, on a piece of paper, draw two faces. One is mummy's face, daddy's face, and one is the child's face. And you both individually write down all of the things that you see in that person. And then you hand it back to the person, and then they write all of the other things that have been missed. And then you realize, because you're looking at that through your lens, and they might see, your child might see something, incredible stuff in you that you don't see in yourself. And it's very, very likely that that child, especially if they've got ADHD or another neurodivergent trait, they might be more inclined to see the negative things. So that's when you can show them actually what you see in them, which is always very helpful. So neuroscience is teaching us that self-expression might actually be one of the most important ways for people to connect, grow with each other. And then this links back down to the Maharaji effect, because these mirror neurons and these connections are very visible to those around. Our energy field is very invisible, but we can make it visible by making sure we're looking after ourselves, that we're focusing on the good things, we're appreciating, we're having self-love and gratitude. So that's it for this week. And next week, we're going to look at emotional resilience in parents. So it'll be leading on from this week, and managing stress through the power of positivity. And just before we run over to questions, I have just launched a membership program, because I've been working one-to-one with people for a long time and realized actually there was a common thread and theme. We're saying that we just feel so isolated, lack of support, feel very alone. And even though they were getting the immediate support one-to-one, I was saying, this is crazy. There's so many people saying the exact same thing. Why don't we just, if they want a forum to connect with others, to share their experiences and to get that guidance? So I created this membership. It's still in its infancy. I'll be there to connect twice a week in a drop-in clinic. So if there's anything bothering you, we'll share resources. There'll be a section for learning within it and events, and also that community, a chat system that's away from social media, that's very private and connected just with the people within the community. It is a paid-for program. That's why we're keeping it really safe and secure. And you can engage with people. In fact, you are thoroughly encouraged to engage. There's a few games and prizes that you can win for engaging with the community and supporting each other. Because my lived experience and my professional experience is only one side of the story. So if we think about, that lens, I'm seeing it through my lens. I'm not seeing it through your lens. So the more we can share those experiences, and I know I have the lens of several other people I've worked with, but everybody's unique. And the more we share that authentically with each other, we can learn more and grow faster. So that is it for this week. I hope you found that interesting and informative.